Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So we finally got the season finale and reunion of Love is Blind season 4, and let me tell you, I'm honestly kind of befuddled. I'm honestly kind of shocked, bemused, if you will, and I'm honestly not even in the best mood. So we're going to be diving into my thoughts and feelings on the season finale and mostly the reunion, to be fair, in today's video. If you haven't checked out my review of Love is Blind season 4, you can go ahead and do so. It's up on my channel, and in that video I focus on episodes 1 to 11. So I cover my thoughts on, everything leading up to the finale and the reunion. But for today's video, we're mostly going to be focusing on the final 2 episodes of season 4, and oh boy, I have a lot of things to get off my chest because quite frankly this was just a shambles. Like, this was just this was just a disaster, and even though I'm laughing, I'm kind of in a bad mood. Like, it put me in a bad mood. Not with you guys, of course. You guys are amazing. Hey, I love you guys. You don't have to worry about anything. I'm talking to Netflix here, okay? I'm talking to Love is Blind, because what I witnessed was just like not good enough at all. But we will get into all of my thoughts and feelings on that in a second. Before we do though, as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. Now, without further ado guys, let's dive into my thoughts on Love is Blind season 4, the finale, and mostly the reunion. Okay, so first of all, we need to address the elephant in the room, right? The failed live reunion attempt. The total failure, the total shambles that the reunion ended up being. Listen, I said in my review that I thought the reunion would be chaos and madness, but I wasn't expecting it to be because of technical difficulties. I was expecting it to be because of, the actual people on the show. Like, I thought there would be fights breaking out, I thought there'd be arguments, but no, the real drama came from the Netflix technical team. Like, the staff just let us down, okay? And I think it was even worse for me here in the UK because the episode was set to drop at 1 a.m, on Monday morning or Sunday evening. And so already it was like testing my limits. It was testing my boundaries, where I was like, am I really going to watch this at 1 a.m? How am I going to wake up the next day? But then it ended up being delayed further. And I was at that point where I was like, oh, I've already waited. Like, do I continue waiting? Like, I was in this holding pattern where I was just like, oh, where do I go now? But eventually I had to give up because otherwise it would have ruined not just the Monday, but my whole week. Literally my whole week would have been ruined. So I gave up, and it's a good thing that I did because the next day I still saw technical problems on the Netflix website. And I'm not blaming the IT people over at Netflix at all. I think it was the corporate side of Netflix that just got, way too big for their boots, and they thought that they could carry out this huge endeavor of broadcasting this reunion live when clearly they did not have the bandwidth to do so. Clearly their servers were down, something was off, and they weren't able to carry this out successfully. And unfortunately, a lot of us were just left there waiting with our hands empty, like, oh, guess this isn't gonna happen. And I would have been okay if it wasn't live, but at least if I had had access to it on Monday. But no, the whole of Monday it was not working for me. So literally I was like, whatever, I was just editing my RuPaul's Drag Race video, and I just kind of forgot about it and then tried it again today. And so I managed to watch it finally, but at that point I was kind of like, already in a bad mood, and it had left a sour taste in my mouth. But even, putting that to the side for a second, after having seen the reunion that we ended up getting, I don't even know if a live reunion was worth it to begin with. I don't even know why they wanted this to be a live event in the first place, considering, and this is my second issue with the show, considering how much nonsensical PR talk ended up being on the show. This was not worthy of a live reunion. Like, I'm so sorry. I sat there for an hour and a half and I came out of the reunion with more questions than I had when I went in. Like, it was literally just a bunch of people sitting around in a corner looking great, looking fabulous, saying all this PR speak, and a lot of these words just had no real meaning. They were dodging questions left and right. Dodging those questions, okay? The questions that we had, very valid questions, after having seen the recording of the show, and we thought we would be enlightened with more information about, you know, what happened behind the scenes. But in the end, it was just like, oh, we've got a lot of growing to do, and we've grown a lot in the last year, and we've just done so much growing, and I still need to do more growing. I still need to do more growing, and oh, he's changed, I've changed, we're happy together. This is just marriage. This is just relationship. Oh my God, what am I watching? What is this? This is nothing. This is nothing at all. What was the point of even trying to make it a live reunion? Now, here's the thing, right? As I often say on this channel, I don't watch too many reality TV shows to begin with. Not because I like hate reality TV or look down on it or anything. It's just not my kind of vibe. And this exemplifies exactly why. Okay, this is a perfect example of why. It's because I hate this middle space of reality versus fiction, you know, versus scripts or, you know, clever editing. Like, I hate this middle ground. It drives me insane because I don't know what to believe anymore. And we'll touch on this a bit more later down the line. But when it comes to the PR speak, it was just a perfect example of why I despise shows like this for the most part. It's because no one is saying anything of value or of substance. But at the same time, it's not clever enough to be a scripted show like Succession. So it's like we're in this middle ground of like, you're just saying words that have no real meaning, and like I said, dodging questions that we all want to know the answers to. And in the end, I'm wondering, what is the point of this reunion? Not even taking into account the fact that they tried to make it a live event. And speaking of the live event element of all of this, there was also the live studio audience, which I believe this is the first time we've had a live studio audience for a Love is Blind reunion, right? Correct me if I'm mistaken. But that audience was like so dead. That audience was as dead as the reunion, to be fair. Like, the audience wasn't given much material to work with. So when there was something like interesting or exciting or scandalous, they reacted. But otherwise, like, there would be times when the cast members would talk and they would pause because they expected the audience to react. But in actuality, the words that had come out of their mouths were so meaningless and so nonsensical that I truly believe the audience was trying to catch up on trying to understand what they even meant. And so there was no reaction. And so the cast member is just sitting there like, yeah, and then I fell in love with her, and that's all that matters at the end. This is where you're supposed to clap. And the audience is just like, what? There were several times when Nick and Vanessa themselves even pointed out that they were confused. And speaking of, let's talk about Nick and Vanessa's interviewing skills. Yeah, again, the audacity of this show to think that they could merit a live reunion when they don't even have like presenters or interviewers that could deal with such a responsibility. I think Nick and Vanessa were pretty poor as interviewers and hosts for this reunion. I think Vanessa was working much harder than Nick. Nick has always just felt like he wanted to have a fun time on the show, be with his wife, get the paycheck, you know, be surrounded by couples who have interesting stories. Like, he is there for the vibe. He is there for the vibe, okay? He's there for the good time. You don't really get a sense that he's like overly invested in each and every couple's story. Whereas Vanessa was like the complete opposite for this episode, where she was really trying to dig into, you know, each of the couples and really trying to ask like follow-up questions, really trying to let them have it. Now, I have seen briefly the response to Vanessa's interviewing style for the reunion, and I think I agree on some aspects, but I disagree on others. So basically, I think the consensus is that she was the villain of the episode and that she took it too far in some aspects, and, you know, was really rude to some people, cutting them off and stuff like that. But I do think that is correct to some extent, to be fair. But I also think that there were several occasions where I actually appreciated the fact that she did ask follow-up questions and did ask for some clarity. It's just that talking to these people was like talking to a wall and no one wanted to say anything of substance. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a second. But when it comes to Vanessa's, you know, interviewing skills, like I said, you know, these two aren't the best interviewers in the world. So they really didn't even merit a live reunion in the first place. But I do think that Vanessa took on board some of the feedback from previous seasons where they were super lax. Like, they were really chill in previous seasons, guys. Come on, let's think back to seasons 2 and 3 when they were just having a fun conversation. At least this time around she seemed like she was trying to conduct an interview, even if she was floundering a little bit. I appreciated the upgrade, you know, I appreciated the intensity that she tried to bring to this interview to remind us that it's supposed to be, you know, a post reality show interview. But like I said, I do think that people made some valid points about certain lines of questioning that Vanessa went down. For instance, the whole kids baby thing. Yeah, no. Yeah, no. It's just like weird because obviously it's a reality TV show. And like I said, there's this kind of blurry line between reality and scripted and fiction. But at the end of the day, these are, you know, real people and you are digging into their real life experiences. However, it may have been portrayed on the show. But I do think there needs to be a line, you know, to take into account the fact that they are real people that you're, you know, exposing to the rest of the world. And so Vanessa kind of really digging into this line of questioning of when are you guys gonna have kids? Like, oh, I know it's like not right to ask, but like, you know, let's just get a timeline. Like, sis, you're right. Okay, you should have stopped there. You should have stopped that. I know it's not right to ask and therefore I will not ask. But instead she continued asking and I was cringing the whole time. I was like, why are we doing this? Oh, it's 2023. Why are we doing this? Like, you don't even know if these couples want to have kids necessarily or what their timeline is. Like, that should not be up for grabs when it comes to this conversation. Another issue that I had with Vanessa's interview was she clearly had like favorites and she clearly had people that she really wanted to dig into versus others. For instance, the favoritism that she showed Jackie and Josh. We'll talk about Jackie and Josh, but I think that whole exchange was handled poorly. It was really weird seeing her get all chummy with them, even though we have come to know Jackie as the villain of the season. So it kind of felt odd, you know, to see her just kind of like laughing with them and having this like intimate conversation. And then we flip back to the live recording where Marshall is just there, having seen her interaction with them and knowing that he was betrayed by Jackie, but he still has to explain himself to Vanessa whilst he doesn't even have the opportunity to talk to Jackie or Josh directly. Like, that whole triangular exchange was just a mess, and I don't think Vanessa was the right person to deal with the complexity of that. And again, I have to go back to my first point here about this being a live reunion for no reason, because if you're not even going to have Jackie and Josh in the room, what is the point? Like, what are we doing? Why were people staying up late even though they had work the next day? If you're not gonna have Josh and Jackie in the room when you know they are like one of the key players of this season, then cancel the live reunion. Don't waste our time. Let us watch it on Monday, you know, on Netflix as per usual, or better yet, just drop it on the same day as the finale. Like, what were they doing? But yes, to conclude my thoughts on Vanessa's interviewing skills, I appreciate the fact that she followed through on certain lines of questioning a bit more aggressively than she has in the past. I do think she made a genuine attempt to address some of the issues that we have raised, you know, as an audience on social media and such, in order to kind of get that out there during the reunion and get the cast to react to it. So I appreciated that. But overall, I don't think that Nick and Vanessa are the right hosts for this series. And I don't think that they were the right people to interview this cast for the reunion. Certainly not if they wanted to make it a live event. They should have gotten that guy. What's his name? Andy Cohen. I think I've seen him around. I think I've seen that guy with like the salt and pepper hair that he's always around like housewives and stuff during their reunions. Yeah, maybe they should have gotten him. if that's the direction that Netflix wants to move in, which clearly it is, like they've shown us this throughout the whole of season 4 with its, you know, emphasis on drama and villains and all of these archetypes that we see in other reality TV shows. So if they want to go in that direction, then just fully commit and get someone like Andy Cohen and just go there, you know, get someone that you know will actually deliver on a good reunion and give you some good sound bites, because unfortunately Nick and Vanessa just aren't up to task. And my fourth general point before we dive into the individual couples and the outcomes of season 4 is something that really annoyed me whilst I was watching the reunion, guys. Like something that just made me roll my eyes, like just raise an eyebrow, like that is this idea of you only saw 10% or you only saw 1%. It started off with 10%, right? Kwame said 10% the first time, and then it was 1%, and then it became 0.5%. But you only saw a small fraction of our love story. And so you can't judge our experience based off of what you saw on the series because it was edited and because it didn't fully reflect our experience, you know, on the show during that time. This was our love story, and so we know our experience better than anyone in the world. You only saw a small fraction. You only saw a small edited fraction. So what you're saying on social media, it doesn't matter. We don't care because you only saw a small fraction. This annoyed the hell out of me. Again, I'm not a frequent reality TV show viewer, so I don't know if this is a common theme across all reality TV shows. I mean, on RuPaul's Drag Race, like, of course, there are queens that blame it on the edit all the time, okay? They blame it, literally, it's a RuPaul song because of this, right? So this isn't a new phenomena. I understand that part of things, but my question is, like, if this is such a small fraction of your love story, of your love journey, then why am I watching? Why are you expecting me to tune into this show to watch 2%, 3%, anything from 0.5 to 10% of your love story? What's the point in all of this? Because honestly, at this point, I feel like I've just wasted my time watching a fictional recount of something that these people experience, and they clearly can't even recognize their own experiences from the TV show that they ended up watching afterwards. So what was the point of me sitting there for 13 hours watching this show thinking that I'm following along one story when in reality it's so different from what really happened? Like, what is the purpose of this? I understand the cast members trying to set the record straight or whatever, and trying to establish that, like, you know, people on social media have misread certain situations, or maybe they have underestimated the connection that they formed in the pods, or, you know, during the experiment, blah blah blah. I get wanting to set the record straight, but then you also have Nick and Vanessa, you know, speaking to the audience and telling us, you know, you guys on social media, you need to understand that these guys are on a TV show. You only see a small fraction of their whole stories, and it's all edited, and you need to take into account that they've put themselves out there and blah blah blah. Guys, this is the reality TV show that you're making. It's you. Why have you edited it in such a way that it's unrecognizable to the cast members? Like, that's the real tea. Imagine blaming your audience for reacting to the information that you provided to them. That makes no sense to me. You guys had all of the footage and you decided to edit it in a certain way to make certain people look more villainous than perhaps they really were, so that you could get more drama, so that you can get more traction and viewership for your show. And now that you've gotten that drama, right, now that you've gotten that content to react to, now that Vanessa has a list of questions to ask from us on social media, now you're trying to turn it back on us and say, oh, but you only saw 2% and therefore your reactions on social media are inaccurate or invalid, or you're overreacting, or you're going too far. What are you talking about? We're reacting to what you showed us. You are the one that provided us with this info. Now, here's the thing. There are absolutely people who take it too far. Okay, I'm not defending people who are bullying, calling people names, like saying horrible things. I'm not defending that whatsoever. Let's be clear right now, okay? People who take it too far ruin it for the whole fandom, okay? And they should really stop this. It's in every single fandom. It's disgusting behavior. I'm not saying this. I'm saying people like myself. people like myself who are trying to speculate, trying to understand, or, you know, fully process what's going on based off of the footage that we have on the show, only to find out in the reunion that it's only 0.5% of what really happened. It's people like me who are sitting here now after having watched the reunion thinking, well, that was a waste of time. Okay, and I think the main relationship that this applies to, well, there's two of them. It's Paul and Micah, and it's Kwame and Chelsea. Like, those two relationships, I'm like, what were they showing us? They didn't show us anything of value then, because we completely misinterpreted the situation according to them. So I'm just sitting here like, what is actually the point? Okay, it's really put me off. I'm like, I don't even think I'm gonna watch season 5 at this point. Like, if they're editing it to such a degree where we completely misinterpret the relationships just so they can drive conversation online and drive drama online, then I'm not into that. Like, that's not something that I signed up for. I get that there's going to be editing. I get that there's going to be, you know, a shortening of what really happened, a condensation of what really happened. But a misrepresentation to that extent, according to them, doesn't interest me in the slightest, because I'm not looking to watch the reunion just to see them retcon everything that I watched for the last 11 hours. That's not the purpose of the reunion for me. For me, the purpose of the reunion is to find out the little bits and bobs and questions that may have been omitted, to get further clarification on them, to get an expansion of them, not to get an entire retcon of the whole series of events. Okay, now that I've told you guys my thoughts on the reunion overall, let's get into these couples. Now, in the finale, we found out, you know, who decided to get married in the end, and who broke off their engagements, and who said no to their fiancés. So we're going to start off with the married couples. First one up is Chelsea and Kwame. Like I said, this is one of the most confusing couples on the show, especially after having seen the reunion. I feel like the representation of their relationship was the most kind of meddled with by editing and by producers. Because I just do not recognize the couple that was in the reunion versus the couple that we saw for what was it, like 11 episodes on the show. Like, it just feels like two different sets of people. I feel lied to. I feel bamboozled. And here's the thing, right? Of course, I consider the fact that they could be, you know, acting it up, could be really laying it on thick for the cameras during the reunion. But it still strikes me as odd, this kind of representation of their relationship that Chelsea had even during the recording, because she was so convinced that they were so in love and they were so happy and right for each other, and these little arguments were standing in the way of her perfect wedding. She was given this like delusional cut. She was done a Lucy Ledoux cut. If you watch Drag Race, okay, she was given the Lucy Ledoux cut, okay, where it seemed like the relationship was really one-sided, but she was like crazy because Kwame was clearly, you know, sitting in the relationship with one foot out of the door. But then you get to the reunion and you find out some additional things, you know, some additional context, like the fact that Kwame wasn't just upset about having to, you know, move from Portland to Seattle, but because he lives this like nomadic lifestyle where he, you know, moves across the country or outside of the country 6 months out of the year. So that was also a consideration for him, to which I still say, why would you go on the show if you knew that that's your reality? But anyway, but yeah, like that's something that wasn't really reflected on, you know, in the original recording of the show. And so you're left with Chelsea having this delusional edit of like, oh, he's my man and we're so happy together. Meanwhile, the rest of us are like, are you seeing the same Kwame that we're seeing? And clearly we weren't seeing the same Kwame. Again, I still take into account that it's likely that they were putting on a show during the reunion. It's likely that Kwame, I mean, he was the king of PR speak during this reunion. He was the king of saying a bunch of words with no real meaning during this reunion. I still think the truth is somewhere in the middle, even though Nick tried to say like, oh, there's only one truth and that's the truth that you guys experience. Okay. Okay. Okay, Nick. No, I think that there is, there are three versions. There is Chelsea's version, Kwame's version, and the truth is somewhere in the middle there. And unfortunately, we did not get even a glimpse of it during the recording of the actual show. Amongst all of the meaningless PR speak that Kwame was spouting during the reunion, we did get some glimpses of what's been going on with them. They seem really happy, especially Chelsea. Like, she seems really happy. Kwame seems like he had, put on an act a little bit during the reunion, if I'm being honest. But like I said, after all of this, I don't know this guy. I don't know what's going on. So I shouldn't even make any assumptions. Okay, I'm tired. But, we did find out that Chelsea got to meet Kwame's mother and she was welcomed into the family with open arms. They talked about Kwame's sister, who I agree was such a babe. Okay, I loved Kwame's sister. But yeah, I'm really glad that Chelsea was welcomed into his family. After all of that, it obviously was a really big deal to him. And I still think that if he knew there was a risk of her not being welcomed, he shouldn't have come on the show in the first place. He should have talked to his family beforehand. But, Vanessa didn't really ask those questions, did she? That's the thing. She had favorites. So not only did she play favorites with Jackie and Josh for some reason, but also with Kwame, she was very light on him. Like, she was out here attacking Paul, which we'll talk about in a second. But with Kwame and Chelsea, she was like, oh, you guys, I'm so happy you worked through everything. Like, I was like, Kwame was a dickhead. Like, let's not... Are you talking to the same Kwame that I was introduced to on the show? Like, she did ask some important questions regarding Kwame's interactions with Micah. Again, just PR speak, man. Like, there was this thing that he said where he's like, oh, there's levels to the apology that I need to say. It felt so rehearsed. It's like, oh, first I need to apologize to my wife, then her family, and then what did he say to the viewers who supported us? I'm like, this isn't a dissertation. You're clearly not saying it from your heart. Like, I do not believe this guy is genuine. At all. Like I said, that I'm not making assumptions anymore because I don't know anything. It just seemed like he had rehearsed this answer. He probably has. And it didn't feel like it was coming from the heart, certainly not in that moment. And I don't think that Vanessa really, like I said, grilled him on this subject enough, especially because they were all kind of caught up on the Mexico scene where Kwame was talking to Micah in Mexico. They didn't mention the scene during Chelsea's birthday party where Kwame approached Micah then as well. So they were misrepresenting the series of events a bit, okay? And Kwame got away with doing so, which annoyed me. Okay, so next up, we'll take a break from the drama for a little bit and talk about Tiffany and Brett. I loved Tiffany and Brett. I really do. They feel like the most genuine, natural couple, certainly of the season, but one of the most genuine couples of all of Love is Blind. I really enjoyed, seeing their relationship bloom throughout the season. I think for me, they were kind of like the due north of the show, where I would be watching some of these other couples and I'm like, am I insane? Or is this problematic? Am I crazy? Or is this wrong? And then I would watch Tiffany and Brett and be like, oh no, I'm not crazy because they're doing it right. And so yeah, they were kind of like the due north, as I said. And I was really happy to see them. I mean, this was just like a follow-up from, the wonderful wedding that they had. There wasn't really much to add to the experience because they just had like a really genuine experience on this reality TV show where they fell in love and got married. And like I said in my review last week, if that happened to everyone, we wouldn't have much of a show. So that's why they have to add all the drama and controversy and all of that, which is unfortunate. But, in the case of Tiffany and Brett, I do feel like this is a genuine relationship that they got into, and I wish them all the best for the future. Brett's sneaker collection, that was like, what? He has a whole wall of trainers. I was like, Brett, that's impressive, let's say. That's my brother's dream, I'm sure. Oh my God, if I showed my brothers this, wow. Okay, so next let's talk about Bliss and Zack. And Irina by default. We'll talk about Irina in a second though. But Bliss and Zack seemed really cute together. They seemed really happy. Zack was sporting a beard, which was a choice. This is not my man, okay? This is not my husband. So let me just leave him alone. But if it were, they were wearing the matching purple. They seem really cute together. I'm still not the most invested in their relationship, but I'm happy to see that they seem to be quite happy together. And yeah, things seem to be going really well. Honestly, the drama was really with Irina, let's be real. So when it comes to their happily ever after, I mean, Zack has been talking to Bliss's dad, you know, that worked out, and he's paying for their honeymoon. So that's cute. And what other updates were there? There wasn't really much other than the stuff to do with Irina. So yeah, I'm happy for Bliss and Zack. I was a little bit surprised that Bliss said yes, but oh, the wedding. Oh my God. The wedding. Most of these other weddings are pretty uneventful, apart from Kwame saying yes. But the Bliss and Zack slow dance, I was dying of cringe. I was dying of, oh, no. And the thing is, I had forgotten that Zack had sung to Irina earlier in the season. So I'd completely forgotten about that, and I was like, oh, this is the peak of cringe. But no, there's more cringe to be found during their wedding. I don't want to crap on their wedding. Like I said, these are real people. They're married now, so it's fine. But the song choice and the stuff like that, just like maybe if it's me, like when it's me, maybe I'll be like, it's so beautiful, I love this love story of ours. But you know, from a distance, I'm just like, oh, make it stop, skip. Okay, so now that we've gone through the married couples, I feel like I'm missing a couple of things here and there, but like, I don't think it's anything major. Let me know if there was something else that you wanted me to discuss about the married couples, and I'll type it in the comments. And now let's get into the singles, starting off with Irina. Yeah. Bold of her to come. Bold of her to show up. Jack and Josh didn't. Okay, so it was bold of her to actually make an appearance, okay, in the reunion. I don't think her appearance had the desired effect though. I don't think this gave her the reputation reboot that she may have been wanting or seeking, because honestly, it kind of made her look a bit off. Like, I don't want to diagnose anyone, but it made her look extremely unsympathetic or unempathetic. Even though she was trying to put on this show and trying to portray someone who has really done the work and has really grown over this last year, and seeing the way that she was treating people disgusted her and made her so ashamed, and she's done the work to grow, to be a better person now. Even though that was the portrayal she was going for, we all kind of saw through it. I didn't find that convincing at all. Her and Kwame were the worst actors of the reunion, okay, because I feel like I just saw right through them. But when it comes to Irina, the biggest thing that they addressed was her bullying and was her ill treatment of other cast members during her appearance on the show. And you know, they first showed the footage of her and the way that she treated the other women in the women's camp in the like pod stages, which she didn't really answer for, actually. Like, they kind of moved on to her treatment with Zack and how horrible she was towards him, but they didn't really answer for how she treated the other women during the pod stages, which was also horrible and very mean girl-esque. Her response to this was, like I said, the usual like PR speak of, oh, watching that just made me sick to my stomach, and I was so sad to see that, and I've done, you know, a lot of internal work and growth, and I think it was partly because of mental health, but I don't want to use my mental health as an excuse. Like, it felt like it felt like an amalgamation of all of the things she's seen on social media. Perhaps she paid for a 1-hour session with a PR expert. She kind of cobbled all of that together into a response to redeem her reputation. But because it did not feel genuine, because it did not feel like it was really coming from the heart, it didn't really do much to save her character. I mean, even before she said a word, she had that moment where she was like, this is so hard for me. This is so hard for me. Not a single tear in her eyes. Her her eyes were as dry as mine, like not a single tear present, no wetness, no dampness, no nothing, okay? So hard for me, guys. And the audience literally laughed. Like I mentioned earlier that the studio audience didn't have many like reactions to what the cast was saying because it was a lot of nonsense. But there was one occasion where they had a hilarious reaction, and that's when Irina started, doing a bit of this, and they literally laughed. Like they did not buy it, and neither did I. So yeah, ultimately when it comes to Irina, regardless of what she tried to say and what she tried to portray on the reunion, I think this is someone who genuinely has a lack of empathy and a lack of sympathy for others. Like I think there's a total disconnect there. I don't believe that she truly saw herself and felt ashamed by what she saw. She didn't feel completely sorry for how she treated the other women in particular on the show. She said something like, oh, I wasn't there to make friends or blah blah blah. But you don't have to attack people if you're focused on finding your true love or whatever, which Zack pointed out she was not. If that was really your focus, right, to find your one true love, that doesn't mean that you have to attack people in order to avoid making friends. You don't have to make enemies. And also, side note, to be fair, they definitely let off Micah for her part in that whole bullying exchange as well. The two of them were acting like a bunch of mean girls, and it was horrible to see on TV. But then we get on to Irina's treatment of Zack, which was also atrocious and terrible. And according to Zack, there was even more that we didn't see on camera, which I believe this time around. And Irina tries to give this like half-hearted apology that's mixed up with all of these excuses that she's trying not to present as excuses, like mental health, and also the fact that, she promised herself that she would stay true to herself, and if she met someone that she did not click with upon, seeing them in real life, then she would just end it. She would just finish it. But that's not what she did. And then she was like, oh, but I wanted to give him a chance and blah blah blah. Again, you're not getting to the root of the issue, which is that you treated him like crap. Why is your version of giving him a chance literally treating him like garbage? Like why is that where your mind went to? That's just really bizarre. Again, it speaks to a lack of empathy and a real issue with treating people with respect and dignity. Like it has nothing to do with her, trying to give Zack a second chance or trying to get over the fact that she didn't feel safe with Zack. That was very pointed. That was very bizarre. When she was like, I didn't feel safe, but not like you were gonna hit me, but I'm like, whoa. Where is this going? What are you trying to make this man look like? Oh my goodness. But all of the things that she said had nothing to do with the fact that she was treating other human beings on the show like garbage for no reason. Like, that's fundamentally what Irina's problem was. She was treating people like crap. She presented herself as a terrible person. And the fact that she didn't really address that, the fact that she was trying to cover up this fundamental fact with all of these excuses and explanations that don't really make sense, tells me that she hasn't really learned her lesson at all. Okay, so next up we have Micah and Paul. Like I said earlier, this is yet another relationship that kind of bamboozled me in the reunion and in the finale, to be fair. Even I wasn't totally shocked that Paul said no in the finale. I was shocked that Micah told him to go first. That was interesting, although having heard her explanation, I feel like it was valid. I feel like that was a fair explanation for why she wanted him to go first. It's just that moment of like insecurity where you're like, okay, I know that I want to say yes, but I'm not 100% sure about where they're at, so let me, let them go first and then, see what they say. And I completely understand her explanation of like, she didn't want to feel like he felt pressured to, say yes just because she had already said yes. That all made sense to me. But this relationship, like I said, I felt like it was inaccurately portrayed during the show. I feel like it was manipulated a lot, or perhaps a lot of their interactions that they discussed in the reunion took place, off camera entirely. So we had no hope of even seeing the full picture. But what really stuck out to me was the different side of Paul that we got in the reunion, where I was like, oh, this is a very unattractive side to this man. I had said in my review that I related to Paul to some extent because he is a scientist and I'm not a scientist myself, but I am an overthinker. I am someone who is, quite intellectual and quite, stuck in their own thoughts oftentimes. And he named one of the major reasons why he was in love with Micah as, because she helps him, kind of tone down that overthinking and kind of helps him like turn his brain off, okay. And I said in that review that it was a flimsy reason. I said, like, listen, that might be one element of why he likes her, but that doesn't really explain how they're going to sustain a relationship. Because if you are someone who is an intellectual, you like to talk about things with a lot of depth, things that you're passionate about, you really want to get into, you're excited about it. And so he might be an environmental scientist nerd and he wants to tell, Micah about all of these discoveries that he's making, and he's going to be faced with someone who's looking at him like he's wild and crazy. Like, I personally could not deal with that, and I had a feeling that Paul wouldn't be able to either. And so I felt like the reasonings that he gave for why he loved Micah were really weak and like not sustainable. And lo and behold, it turns out I was right. In the end, the whole intellectualism thing wasn't really a factor. It came down to, ironically, base instincts. Nothing intellectual about it. Where he claims that he didn't see Micah as a viable mother, or at least, a mother figure, a maternal figure. And that was like very cruel, especially in light of what Micah said, about her own mother and how she struggled to conceive. And this is a very sensitive topic to her that she had expressed to Paul. Like, I really felt for her in that moment, even though she was still a bully in those early episodes, let's not forget. But I felt for her in that moment because I'm a compassionate person. Because, hearing her story, I was like, yeah, Paul, why the hell would you say that? He came across as so like brash and so uncompassionate and like just, it was like, it was an ugly look for Paul, I must say, in the reunion. I was like, Paul, like, you might be cute or whatever, but what's this side of you? Like, oh, you're not fit to be a mother, whatever. And like, there might be some critiques of Micah's personality and hints of, some troublesome things that we saw on the show. The drinking wasn't great. Getting white girl wasted every episode wasn't great. But to say that, like, oh, I don't see you as a mother, I'm like, how the fudge dare you? And for him to wait until the wedding day, like, I completely side with Micah on this. If he had this issue, this is a huge issue to have. He should have mentioned it earlier. Why was he like dragging her along in this hopeless relationship, convincing her that, they had something that they could potentially go somewhere, when all along he's thinking like, oh, she'll never be my wife because I don't see her as a mother. Like, that is a huge issue. And then later after the wedding, he even mentioned during like one of their dates, of screen, that he wasn't even sure if he wanted to have kids in the first place. And Micah was literally sitting there shook, like, what? Like, we were supposed to have discussed this. We were supposed to have gone through all of this. We went all the way up to the aisle and you didn't tell me any of this. And so sis was like genuinely shocked and upset. And honestly, I was there with her. I was like, Paul, you have shown such a hideous side to yourself. I cannot believe you did this. Like, he was so wrong for that. And then Zack comes in. Zack comes in and he's like, oh no, I don't like how you're portraying my friend Paul. You're trying to villainize him, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Zack, you need to sit down, sir. With your beard, you need to sit down. And finally, we have Jackie and Marshall and Josh, parentheses. And like I said, Jackie and Josh didn't even bother to show up to the reunion itself. They were separately interviewed by Vanessa via Zoom. And I don't think that was the right way to do it. I feel like Vanessa was just like having a chat with them. Okay, like they were best buddies. And we didn't really get to the heart of a lot of the issues that us, those of us in the audience, actually had throughout the actual episodes of the show. So that ended up being largely a waste of time, and again, it did not warrant this live reunion event because the major players that we wanted to see interact with one another weren't even there on the show. In terms of what was said, first of all, Jackie and Josh are together still and they seem really happy. Josh seems to be some kind of like fighter, like MMA MMA fighter, which a lot of us guessed because of his cauliflower ears. So yeah, it seems like that's right up Jackie's street. You know, he's the kind of tough guy that Jackie wanted. I still think it was really mean and cruel for Jackie to make fun of Marshall that way. And it seemed like, you know, with the unseen footage that we got from the pods, that this was something that was in her mind for a very, very long time. So she just made the wrong decision and wasted Marshall's time. Not only wasted his time, but ridiculed him in front of the whole world for no reason. Yeah, it was just a shambles from that front, but they seem happy together and that's fine. But when it comes to the stuff that Jackie actually addressed from the show, she cleared up the fact that she did not go on the date with Josh whilst she and Marshall were still together. As I said in my review, because I'd already seen her little Instagram post, and as Marshall said in the reunion itself, it doesn't matter, because if she went on a date with Josh literally the next day or a couple of days after the breakup, then that's still pretty bad. But one thing that really stuck out to me, and also to Vanessa, who brought it up in the actual reunion, was Jackie's claim that Marshall had said a slur to her. And I was like, what? A slur? Not a slur. What kind of slur? I was thinking, like, what slur could he say to her? I was trying to figure out. No, this is very serious. This is very serious. Not a slur. I wonder what the slur is. Anyway, apparently Marshall said a slur to her, and Marshall clarified that they were joking. They had a sort of, you know, jokey interaction, which turned out not to be so jokey. I think it was like probably transphobic from what he was explaining with like the jawline situation, her looking like a man or whatever. I think it was probably transphobic actually, which isn't funny at all, especially not in this climate. So I think perhaps Jackie made comments about Marshall's sexuality, which were echoed in her text with her friends, because she automatically assumes that if you are a sensitive man and one who is open to expressing, you know, their thoughts and feelings, that you are gay. Like there's just no two ways about it. And so that's homophobic, that's incorrect, that's stupid. Like on so many levels she is wrong. And I think in that interaction, again, this is my speculation, I think in that interaction perhaps something transphobic was said about Jackie with her jawline and her masculine features. Maybe Marshall thought that was the kind of, you know, back and forth that they were having, but she took offense to that. So again, we don't really know the nature of that discussion and what really happened, so I'm not going to say someone was more right than the other. It sounds to me like they were both being really problematic in that moment, but it doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, Jackie treated Marshall like crap for no apparent reason, because she could have just chosen Josh from the jump and we wouldn't have gotten into all of this mess in the first place. Oh, and speaking of messiness, the ring. Yeah, Jackie kept the ring just like rotten and classless and just lack of morality and ethics and just weird and lack of shame, shameless. Okay, she kept the ring and she said it with pride, like during the interview, and I was like, oh, like I forgot to look at Josh's reaction during that. I should go back and look at his face as well. But that is like not something to be proud of. Like, what are you talking about? And she's like, oh, he gave it to me to propose to me, and he was going to give it to another girl that he was dating. And then Marshall clarifies that like he went on one date with another girl, and that was also a bit sus, by the way. Because Marshall's like, oh, this girl reached out to him a day after he broke up with Jackie, and then Vanessa's like, whoa a day after, how did she find out? And then he was like, oh, on social media. And I'm like, on social media, did Jackie post something on social media on the day? If so, that's, I mean, I have no words. If so, if Jackie posted something on the day, like when she went out with Josh on social media, like I'm not aware of this, but that's just like wild. But if she found out on social media, fair enough. But if they were talking beforehand, then like I said, I don't know these people. I'm not casting judgment. I'm not coming to any conclusions anymore, because clearly I'm just going to be made to look like a fool. But yeah, in the main reunion, Marshall clarifies that he didn't want the ring back to propose to someone else. He claims it's truly because, you know, it was a symbol of his love. You know, they chose it together. It felt right at the time, and he wants it back because that love is no longer there. And Jackie put him through the ringer, and so he doesn't want her having that symbol of his love anymore. And like, duh, like any reasonable person would understand this, but this woman is just like, oh, and she claims to have changed. She claims to be a completely different Jackie, and yet I'm seeing no sign of it. I'm just seeing a Jackie that's in a relationship with another man, whatever. That's it from me, guys. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on Love is Blind, the season finale, kind of, and mostly the reunion, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of all of this down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.